Well, and this is the patch. Let me demonstrate two simple things. At first, an overview, what is going on here, but I reduce the overall volume because me talking and the patch talking may be disturbing. All right, so we have two sample players with two different samples loaded, and each sample player sends its output to a VCA. Here, let me put it away a little bit. So, and these VCAs are switched on and off by the comparator here. The threshold of the comparator is set manually with this knob here above, and the input, the voltage which is compared to this threshold, comes from an LFO, from the square wave of an LFO, to make things clear. I will change this later in this video. Well, and this LFO switches on and off these VCAs, so we hear, once we hear the sound, the sound file, the pre-recorded sound file here on the right, and then otherwise now, for example, we hear the sound file from pre-recorded sound file here on the left. I use, of course, the gate outputs of the threshold of the comparator to do so, but I also use the trigger output because I want a shot sound. Stylized. No, it's well, a sound mimicking a shot a shot sound, and this trigger I feed into the plateau, the reverb unit, which I feed into the filter, the VCF, and use the low pass output to feed it into the mixer, as well as I fed into the mixer these two pre-recorded sounds here. And as both let's say playheads are moving differently, and the LFO's frequency is not in any way adjusted to the speed of movement of these two playheads. We get randomly played parts from each pre-recorded sound. Well, let's listen to it for a while, for some cycles, so that we can hear the difference. The different sound parts of sound that we hear when each sample player is switched on and off. So let me. Cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha, Sherlock. Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha, Sherlock. Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha, Sherlock. Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha, Sherlock. All right. Let me reduce it again. In let's say real life, you would do it differently. We would switch the whole patch on and off after having played both pre-recorded parts, one after the other, because they belong to each other. So let me remove no, let me stop the record. It's playing, and yes, and remove the modulation of the VCA for a while. So, all right. No, I don't want this. So let the shot sound faded out now. All right. So first, this is playing. Ha ha, Sherlock cried, clapping. And then at once after that, oh, sorry, come on. Yeah, so reset. So once again. Ha ha, Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. And then this rock and roll thing going into this rhythm. All right, but now let me switch the modulation on again.
Ha ha, Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha, Sherlock cried, clapping his hands. Ha ha.
Yeah, all right. So, but now something else. I want to describe something else, or to demonstrate. Yeah, shut up. And, oh yes, I have not faded in the shot sound, but okay. Well, the next thing I want to show you in short is how a comparator can be used to change any wave form into square wave, into pulses. So I connect the gate output with the scope, turn the time down and increase the LFO's frequency. So, and now, for example, I feed, for example, in a sine wave. Let me change the position so that we can see it better. No, not the scale, it's the position, of course. All right, and so you see I have changed the sine wave into a pulse wave. Let me change the threshold, the manually adjusted threshold. And by doing so, I change the duty cycle. We increase thresholds again, even more. Now maximum. Now I think it's a square wave. It's a duty cycle of 50%, I think. By the way, duty cycle, to make it easy for those who don't know it, is the period of high voltage. So now it's 50%. The whole cycle is 50% high and 50% low. And when I change the threshold, meaning change the voltage the input is compared with, of course, the jumps between high and low happens at different times than before, at different stages of the sine wave, of different levels of the sine wave, and so I have different duty cycles, different pulse waves. And when I use a VCO, yeah, why not? Let me insert a VCO. Let's say a sine triangle. Well, yes, okay, why not? Sine wave. No, the triangle wave. I use a triangle wave. Yeah. So this is what I feed in the comparator. Let me reduce this. So this is what I feed in the comparator. Difference time. Oh, no, it's. Oh, well, okay. Let me reduce the frequency a bit. Oh, no. Oh, okay. So I feed the output of the comparator. I feed into the mixer. And now I change the threshold. And I can do this, of course, also using an LFO. Well, I should use this. Oh, why not doing so? I reduce the bandwidth by attenuating the signal of the LFO. Yeah, all right. I think you see the possibilities comparator gives us. Oh, no, one thing I want to show you. Let me change this and this. We don't need the scope. I modulate the input, the two sound files, pre-recorded sound files again. Let them play. And feed. Yeah, okay. And feed not an LFO, but one sound file into the input as well, and let the threshold modulate by the other one. Or the other way around.
Clapping his hands.
Okay, let me use the same output. And now I get different, let's say, grain-like effects depending on where the offset of the threshold is set. So one sound file is modulating the threshold, the other sound file, well, is produces the voltage which is compared to the threshold, to the ever-changing threshold, changing according to this sound file here at the moment. Okay, but that's really enough about comparators. Later on in the book and in later videos, there will be more examples with comparators.